I hate Saints GM Mickey Loomis, says Matt Moscona. Time to point finger at Gail Benson. Ladies and gentlemen, sound the alarm. The rant alert is here. Matt is not happy with Saints GM Mickey Loomis's end-of-year press conference, which, of course, we recapped and reviewed the entire thing. 1.5 hours, 90 minutes of pure reaction content. So if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. I cover every topic there. But this is the first time I've heard the reaction from someone else in the space. So we're going to hear what Matt has to say about this, and we're going to react along the way. I've seen a few thumbnails and titles from the gang over at ESPN 1045. It's all the same. They're all mad at Loomis. They hate Loomis. You know, Loomis out. Loomis is crazy, whatever. So I'm expecting mostly that. I thought the whole thing was kind of whatever. Like, I thought the press conference was kind of meh. I mean, we know things are happening, so there wasn't really much to be said right there. Things are in motion. A lot of lip service. Like, you got to remember, just because he says Dennis Allen's a great coach doesn't mean, like, he fired Dennis Allen. So, like, you know he doesn't believe that, right? Like, just because he says, oh, yeah, I have full confidence in Derek Carr, doesn't mean he's going to continue forward with Derek Carr. A lot of this is just salesmanship. A lot of this is just straight up lip service saying, you know, he's not going to bury Dennis Allen. He's not going to bury Derek Carr live right there on air.
Is mine and Erica's 13th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Not that I need congratulations or anything like that. You'll understand why I bring that up. And I'm very happily married. I'm a very, very, very lucky man. Beautiful woman.
Congrats. 13 years is a long time.
Gave me an awesome son and his great mom. And I'm a very, very, very blessed person.
Kudos.
I was thinking about this today because Mickey Loomis was meeting with reporters, kind of updating the coaching search and just Saints off-season stuff. And I'm listening to him talk, and he had a 45-minute press conference.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't help but think that, like, everything he said just annoyed me. And you know how sometimes, like, I can't relate to this, so if I'm speaking out of turn, I apologize, but some of you will understand what I'm saying. Like, sometimes in a relationship where you've passed the point of no return.
Yes.
And you're just done with someone, everything they say and everything they do just annoys you, it bothers you, you criticize everything. Like, they can't do anything right. You hear that a lot, like, with couples that split, either in a marriage or dating or whatever. And I feel like, as a Saints fan, I've gotten to that point with Mickey Loomis.
This is actually a very illuminating point from Matthias here. I mean, I think sometimes fans can be, you know, that can happen. Absolutely. It can happen with players, you know, and it can happen both ways. Like, sometimes you can be overly negative to a player or a coach, and sometimes you can be overly positive, where they can be bad, but you still believe they're good, or, you know, vice versa. So this is actually there's a lot of self-awareness here.
Like, everything about Mickey Loomis now bothers me. His smug face, smacking on the gum, and his unwillingness to acknowledge any fault with anything they're doing within this organization. And today, I had to listen to Mickey Loomis for 45 minutes piss on my head and tell me it's raining.
So, golden shower aside, I tend to look into, like, the in-between, right? If Mickey says, I think Dennis Allen's a great coach, I don't really take that for face value because I know he just fired him. So I look like, okay, what actually happened? What's the in-between? Like, he obviously doesn't mean that. Here's what, you know, actions speak louder than word kind of thing. So I can understand where if you're just hearing the sound bites, or you're reading the sound bites, or you're reading what he said, Jake Hayner's a good quarterback. What he said this, what he said, look past the results, whatever. Like, you do have, it's a bit of a puzzle. It's a bit of a Sudoku puzzle. I'm not going to lie. To kind of hear and see and read the words, and then you fit it together with what's actually happened, what's happening moving forward. So but I can absolutely understand where sometimes you just don't like a guy, you think he's a piece of garbage, you think he's terrible, then it really doesn't matter what someone says. You can spin it or believe it the way you want to.
Like, remember in the offseason, of course you do, when he shows up at that press conference and he starts rattling off the stats of Chuck Noll and Tom Landry and Bill Bell.
That was last year's end of the year thing. What I believe. I think that was last year's. Not like last year's in like a couple weeks ago. I mean like last year. I think that was the end of the year press conference.
Belichick, all these amazing all-time coaches who had rough beginnings to their coaching career, and he tried to compare them to Dennis Allen. Never mind the fact that we saw Dennis Allen fall on his face in Oakland, and then he was falling on his face again in New Orleans. Like the audacity of Mickey Loomis to try to compare Dennis, when we all were like, are you kidding me? This is the energy you're bringing? So today, Mickey Loomis is meeting with reporters.
Well, that's a good example, though, what I'm talking about, where like, he definitely went overboard, and coaches and whatever do go overboard in those situations, but it's like, it's almost just filler words because at that time, Dennis Allen was the head coach. He's under contract. He's moving forward with him this season. So he's not going to be like, yeah, man, this guy sucks. But, he's the head coach. Like, he's going to, even that's that lip service I'm talking about where, what's the old saying? Like, you put lipstick on a pig or whatever. Like, that's kind of what's happening. We see other coaches do it with, like, quarterbacks. Like, quarterbacks we know are horrible. It's like with the Jets. We heard a lot of, oh, yeah, Zach Wilson's putting a ton of work this week in practice. Looks great. And it's like, brother, we've been watching him for a year and a half. He's awful. Like, what do you mean? No. We love what we see in in Zach Wilson. Like, do you? Are you sure? Are you watching the same Zach Wilson I know?
And he's asked, hey, do you regret going so hard then in the defense of Dennis Allen? Listen to what he said.
No, I don't regret any of it. Dennis Allen's a really good football coach.
Ugh.
Yeah, so I don't regret any of that.
Oh, my God.
And I said during the video, like, he is a good football coach if you remove winning, if you remove scoring points, if you remove trying to beat your opponent, if you remove trying to build a locker room, if you remove, like, just being a man manager, if you remove the operational side of things, if you remove logistics and travel and preparing your team off bye weeks and extra rest, if you remove building a staff, if you remove all those things, I mean,
Like, I kind of hate everything about Mickey Loomis right now.
I respect the honesty.
Like, all of it. I've reached the point of no return. And in some other context, like, you know how when couples break up?
Is this the rant alert music? Is that
like
what this
sometimes
is? What
after they break up, then they can be amicable. You know what I mean? Like, that makes sense. Your friends aren't starting. Your friends are still getting married. They're not getting divorced yet. You'll get to that point.
When the music started playing, I didn't realize we were going to have music all of a sudden. I thought I was having some kind of a psychotic break. I thought I was slipping in and out of reality. I thought I was entering a different realm. I thought I was going where people go when they take DMT or when they have a near death experience. I thought it was all over with. I was just kind of sitting here like trying to pay attention to what Matt was saying. I had Mickey staring at me in the corner over there, and then I started hearing this random guitar. I started hearing some rock music happening. I started to get cold sweats. I didn't know exactly what was happening here. So thank God that it's just a sound drop.
Your friends get married, then your kids have babies, then your friends start getting divorced. Like, that's how it goes. That's the circle. That's how we are all connected in the great circle of life. Don't worry, Adams will get divorced soon enough.
Jeez. Come on, man.
Poor guy.
Damn.
Adams, I wish you and your wife. It's a bit. I apologize, Adams. I wish you and your wife. What's her name?
Brooke.
I wish Adams and Brooke nothing but the best. But you are rude as hell, Adams.
Goodness
married
gracious.
Freaking football season.
Oh.
He's cruising for a divorce.
Anyway, Mickey Loomis. That's what this is about. Back to Mickey Loomis.
Yeah. Like, play another one, Muse. Like, this is just the whole 45 minutes of this.
And there's 32 jobs, and a lot of guys want to be head coach. So every job is attractive.
He was asked, like, why is the Saints job good? He basically said the Saints job is attractive because it's a job.
Well, it is kind of true. I mean, it's a head coaching job. Like, it's the same reason people are going to take, like, every team fills the job. I mean, some teams are in the worst possible situation with the worst possible roster in the worst stadium. I mean, the Oakland Athletics had a manager last year. You know, like, they had players. Like, that is kind of part of it. And during that part of the interview, Mickey was talking about how you don't have to really sell the job. Like, I agree. Like, you shouldn't have to sell the job as much as the person you're interviewing is trying to sell themselves or trying to be hired. Like, it's not up to the Saints. You know, it's not up to them to make the Saints be like this destination. It's more about who you're interviewing. Like, are they the right candidate?
That was his answer. Why is your not? We got a great cap situation. Not. We got a great roster. We got a young quarterback. You know what he said? Our job's attractive because it's a job. Play it again.
And there's 32 jobs, and a lot of guys want to be head coach. So every job is attractive.
I've had to sit here and watch this man gag away the worst cap situation ever in the NFL. By the way, every year before every season, we see everybody put out their preseason predictions, all sorts of stuff, and every analyst ever craps on the Saints for their cap situation. Yet defiantly, here goes Mickey Loomis today talking about the cap situation. There's $50 million over the cap.
I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at. I'm comfortably uncomfortable. So it's something we have to manage, but there's a lot of teams that have to manage their cap that way. And
yeah, I mean, the cap, that was a high pitch right there. The cap is interesting. You know, I mean, like, until it really matters, a lot of teams, you know, like, you can't get bogged down in it. It is what it is. It is kind of a game inside of itself where you're trying to maneuver it, you're trying to take advantage of it, you're trying to play around with it. I mean, the teams do it in baseball, teams do it in basketball. It's just you see it until they can't turn the lights on, until it's a legitimate factor. It's kind of hard to quantify it. It's kind of hard to quantify how much of a negative or positive it is. It's not correlated of over the cap means you lose games, under the cap means you win games. None of that's correlated. I understand where you don't want to just rack up tons and tons and tons of dead cap and all that stuff. But if you are managing it, if you are getting under it when you have to, if you are, you know, strategic with it, then, you know, I mean, I've never been one to get bogged down in the whole cap thing.
There's teams that have to manage a cap situation. That's $60 million over the cap every year. Meanwhile, you watch Zach Bond go be an all-pro. Trey Hendrickson, all-pro.
Hendrickson's the one. So Hendrickson is the one where you kind of look at it and you're like, man, guys, what happened? But I think Hendrickson was probably a Cam Jordan situation where they thought, look, we got Cam here. Like, we're good. We don't really have to flex the checkbook to keep Hendrickson here. Like, we're kind of good on the edge. And then Cam it just went downhill quick. And Bond, I mean, Zach Bond is one of those things where it's better. It's more of a situation that's better for Bond than bad for the Saints. It's very similar to Sam Darnold in San Francisco or Baker in LA, where it's not really like LA's fault that they let Baker walk, and it's not really San Francisco's fault they let Sam Darnold walk. It's just kind of like part of what happened. Like, he wasn't, like, Darnold was never going to play in San Francisco. Baker wasn't going to play in LA. Bond wasn't going to play in New Orleans, and he wasn't going to play how he's playing now in New Orleans. It's a totally different system. You're talking about 4-3 versus 3-4. At the time, Bond is playing inside. He's dealing with, he's buried on the depth chart behind Demario Davis. Demario Davis at the time is the fourth rated top 5 linebacker in the NFL. And if Zach Bond would have stayed in New Orleans, he probably would have just went away into nothingness. Like, he found a situation that was good for him and a really good defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, and it's worked out for both parties. So, I mean, both parties being the Eagles and Zach Bond. So, Zach Bond's one of those ones, it's just kind of like, yeah, he fell into a situation that was good for him. Like, I'm happy for Zach Bond. Hendrickson is the one where it's like, yeah, for sure, the Saints messed that up. For sure, the Saints should have tried to hold on to him and definitely needed him and could have used him and probably put too many eggs in the basket of some of the aging players at the time who they were unwilling to acknowledge was on the downswing.
Your safety play sucks. Meanwhile, you got Marcus Williams out there play like you suck. Don't even get me started on the draft. Don't get me started. Here's Mickey Loomis talking about the draft.
Oh, I'd always take more draft picks if we could get them. But look, I like where we're at, and I like our history of drafting too. I think we've got a really good history of drafting.
Yeah, you got a good history of drafting and not hanging on to the talent because of your awful cap situation, you bum.
The drafting thing is weird when you look at it. Like when you look at the draft situation, you look at some of those drafts, like the Hendrickson drafts. Like, damn, this is crazy. Like this is. Go take a look at 2016, 2017. It might be better than you even think. But, yeah, I mean, the identifying players is going pretty well.
Oh, and then what was the beginning of that? What did he say at the beginning of that?
Oh, I'd always take more draft picks.
Oh, you'll always take more draft picks if you can get them? Then why do you never trade back to get more picks? Oh, if they're just going to give me picks? Oh, if they're just going to give me picks, I'll take more. Oh, but I have to trade back? No, you know what you do? You trade up every stinking year. You trade up every year. There's this little chart out there about the value of picks, and no GM in the NFL, dating back to 2011, has done more, has created less value out of his draft picks than Mickey Loomis.
Since when?
What else we got?
2012?
What else did this bum say today?
Because the results aren't.
It's hard to imagine that's true. I mean, just because, like I said, the 2016, 2017, that's an insane creation of value.
Well,
I think what happens is, when I hear this and see it, like I said, it's just like, it just is what it is. You know, like and maybe I'm just view the front office or whatever differently, but it's more of like okay, you can say whatever you want for 45 minutes. You can tell me, look past the results. You can do whatever you want. Let's get down to hiring this head coach. Let's get down to filling out the coaching staff. Let's get down to the draft. Let's get down to figuring out Derek Carr's contract. I don't care if you tell me to look past the results or whatever you want to say. You can all you want. Hire the right head coach. Get whoever on the staff. And then if you don't make those right decisions, I'm going to call for you to be fired. Bottom line. Same with the interviews with the players, where I don't care if Derek Carr wants to say whatever soundbite or say this or say that. Produce on the field. If you produce on the field, we'll be good to go. I just kind of call it like I see it. And I honestly was kind of surprised. I wasn't surprised, I guess, but I was a little shocked to see such like visceral response to the interview. You know, I had a commenter tell me like it was like a personal affront. He took it personally at the interview, so I don't know if it's just like I don't know if people are expecting Mickey to just flat out be like, "Yep, you know, Dennis Allen sucks." Dennis Allen, hey, if you're out there, Sugma, Ligma, you know, like Tugma, get out of my face. Oh, hey, by the way, Pete Carmichael also sucks. We'll double down on that one. Like, I don't know if they expect Mickey to put out like just an absolute like battle rap type situation, just completely just flaming people. Like, that's just not going to happen. Like, Mickey's not going to be like, yeah, man, Derek Carr contract. Are you kidding me? What a disaster. Should have never picked up the bill at dinner that night. Like, he's not going to say that, you know? So I guess if you don't expect it, it's not as much of an affront. But yeah, I mean, certainly people heard him. We're not happy.
Because the results aren't what we want doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong.
Because the results aren't what we want doesn't mean we're doing something wrong. Like Einstein said it, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Brother, the results have been this now for a half a decade.
Yeah, I mean, like, you gotta, you know, like, I had a commenter that was kind of saying a little bit of the same, and it's it's obviously the front office's job to evaluate what's going on. And you do have to evaluate separate from the results. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to evaluate. That just means you have to do the evaluation regardless of the results. You have to do the evaluation whether you win 9 games or 5 games. So you have to look at what you are doing, what the processes are, what's on the roster, how you're building that roster, who you're identifying, who you're drafting, who you're signing, who you're like what the contract situations are. That you have to look at that regardless. Whether you're 12 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins, 5 wins. You don't say, well, we won 10 games. We're not looking at nothing. And then you win 5 games. You're like, oh, hold on a second. Flip it all upside down. Like there's context you got to weave in and all this other stuff. And yes, this front office is absolutely back against the wall. No doubt about it. This is the year. They have made mistakes for the last couple of years, whether it was Dennis Allen or Pete Carmichael or whatever. The results have not been good, which has forced certain players and certain roster moves, like trading Marshawn Lattimore, probably going to be forced to release Derek Carr. Stuff right now is at that kind of razor's edge where, okay, you got to get a new coach. You got to make a big decision here. This is the biggest decision. This is the biggest. I can't get over the pause situation here for Matt. This is the biggest offseason since hiring Sean Payton. Because Dennis Allen's hiring was like, okay, that's kind of an inside situation. Like it's kind of like trying to keep things in the building, whatever. Klint Kubiak was a step in the right direction, but it's only like a little half decision. This is like you are directing the sales. You are, and I mean the sales on the sailboat, not the sales as far as like the ticket office. You are directing where you are going, where you are headed, the identity of this team, the culture of this team. You are hopefully charting this team. I guess we're going to go with the sailing metaphors. You are charting this team for the next, hopefully, 10 years of where they're going. And you get this one wrong, yeah, it probably is time to look at the GM. It probably is time to look at the front office. No doubt about it. You get this one wrong, the Saints continue messing up in the same areas, whether it's misevaluations or missignings or whatever. Yeah, okay. There's got to be answers now. No doubt about it. But this is very similar to a lot of the other jobs that we're seeing come open. It's like, all right, like Chicago. Okay, you messed up with Eberflus. What are you going to do now? Because if you mess up 2 coaches in a row, that whole front office is probably gone. You got Caleb Williams in there. All right, let's see. Let's see what you do with him. Because if he flops and you're missing on coaches, probably out of a job. So, I mean, New England. Like, all right, what do you do after Belichick? Gerard Mayo. Complete disaster. All right, well, you better get it right this time. And it looks like I have a sneaky feeling they did with Mike Vrabel. But you see it everywhere, and the Saints are right there in that. Where, all right, you got yourself in this hole. Now get out of it.
Got it. I was with you when you had a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame coach, and you were trying to go all in to win. Derek Carr ain't a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you don't even have a coach anymore.
Well, I mean, we're definitely not all in to win. And that's kind of what I'm talking about the devil's in the details, where Mickey's not going to come out and flat out say, hey, the window is over. Hey, we're rebuilding. But when he traded Marshawn Lattimore, and then you're looking at releasing Derek Carr, and then Ryan Ramczyk retires, and then, it doesn't take a genius to look around and say, like, okay, we are rebuilding with the 9th overall pick. Like, it's not hard to see what's actually going on. I used this metaphor yesterday, and I'll use it again, but it's like if you worked in a kitchen and you're a chef and you're trying to kind of piecemeal everything together, but the equipment's breaking down, there's rust everywhere, but you're still kind of serving, and quality's dropping, whatever, and then eventually you're like, all right, enough's enough. And you get rid of the old stove, you get rid of the old refrigerator, you get rid of everything, you gut the whole place, and then someone comes in and they're like, hey, are you completely rebuilding? And if you're like, no, we're not rebuilding, we're just kind of looking at some stuff, like, okay, well, you're standing in an empty kitchen. Like, you're obviously rebuilding. You can say whatever you want. You can call it whatever you want, but you are obviously rebuilding. Hey, you looking at new stoves? Nah, we're kind of happy where we are right now. We're just kind of trying to figure some things out. Okay, well, you don't have a stove. You're obviously getting a new stove. All right, like the Saints obviously aren't happy with their previous coaches. They obviously aren't happy with the decisions they've made as far as like hiring coaches and whatnot. They are obviously moving forward in getting a new coach, getting a new roster, rebuilding certain positions, getting younger. Like all those things are just inherently happening. So you got to kind of poke your head out of the sand for a second, look around and say like, okay, well, whether they want to or not, they are now getting younger. And like that was the whole thing for a while. It was like, you got to get younger, And it's happening now, whether they want to or not, just because of these organic contracts and certain players retiring. You know, like you can't keep running it back with Dennis Allen and his coaching staff. Well, they fired Dennis Allen. They got rid of Pete Carmichael. Like they're taking the steps that show that they agree with that. You know, like this standard's not good enough for the Saints. Something's got to change. They agree. Like no doubt. We're not in win now mode. Quit trying to win. They just traded their best defensive player. Like they just traded their best trade asset. Congratulations. We are there. We are in the rebuild world.
What are you doing?
Me?
You got any more? Or is that it?
I got one more.
Obviously, this was a tough season, not what we expected. You know, what jumps out is the amount of injuries, and we've got to do a deep dive into that.
I think the injuries is an answer to the season, but it's not an answer to the long-term situation. Like, why did the Saints go 5-12? Mostly because of the injuries. Okay, well, does that also solve the problem for next year and the next year? No, because the way the contracts were set up, the way the age of the players are, a wasted year means now you have to move some players around. You got to move assets around. You got to change contracts. So it's kind of like a domino thing, but the injury question / answer is a very short-term answer. And the question, it's like a separate question is, okay, well, last year happened, or this year happened, or I guess both. So what are you going to do now?
Hey, Muse.
And it's pretty obvious like what they're going to do now, which is they're going to clean out the roster. They're going to clean out the cap. They're going to try and get back into beginning the next window or whatever the next window looks like.
Yeah.
Who's the number 1 seed in the NFC?
The Detroit Lions.
They a pretty healthy team?
No.
No, they're big hurt on the defensive side of the ball. Big hurt.
Oh.
And the defense has struggled greatly. No doubt. The defense was struggling towards the end of the season with the injuries were piling up. Obviously, they smoked Minnesota, but they have certainly felt the injuries.
Oh, really?
No.
They had some injuries this year?
Actually, 21 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That feels like a lot of injury.
That's a lot.
49ers also, if you want to point to the 49ers. 49ers dealt with a lot of injuries. I recently saw a stat. It was like most starters, as far as game time, lost to injuries. And I want to say San Francisco was number 1 and New Orleans was number 2. But, I mean, yeah, San Francisco is a good example of just because the season wasn't good, do you throw the whole thing out? Like, and I'm not defending Mickey. I'm just giving you an example of how it can kind of, you got to be able to look at the context. You got to be able to figure it out for yourself. Like, you look at San Francisco. Okay, horribly underwhelming. I mean, not only are you not in the playoffs, not only are you not winning the division, but you are bad. Like, you're a bad team. You're nowhere near your preseason forecast. So you look at that season, you look at those results, you have to ask yourself, okay, are we doing something wrong if you're San Francisco? Are we building out the wrong roster? Do we have aging players? Do we have players that are very injury riddled? Like, are we building a roster that promotes injuries? Christian McCaffrey, a very injured player through his career. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Trent Williams. You have to start looking around like, okay, is this us? Is it a freak thing? Like, what do you do? So if you're San Francisco, if you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, do you just say we chalk it up to injuries and the circumstantial situation, or is it time to pivot? Is it time to change? And this is more of a question for you, the audience. Like, what do you think? Do you think San Francisco should shake things up? Do you think John Lynch should be on the hot seat? Do you think Kyle Shanahan should be on the hot seat? Or do you kind of trust what they have going on as a foundation? And would you just pretty much run it back next year?
And you said they're the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Number 1 seed in the NFC.
So, like, they got the bye and they'll play at home and all that stuff?
Yes, actually, yeah. They're going to play the Commanders.
Interesting,
yeah.
12-1 Super Bowl ticket. Lions. If you're not rooting for a team, root for the Lions. For me, would be a huge cash.
Dude, I've gotten to the point with Mickey. Like, whenever he's no longer the Saints GM, I'll probably have an opportunity to step back and appreciate the many years he's been here, and I'll be able to look at the good he did. But right now, everything about him just pisses me off. I'm finished. I am done. I am done. Like, I will not say another nice thing about Mickey Loomis until he is no longer the Saints general manager. I'm going to tell you this. I don't want to have to do this, but we're getting close to the point where I'm going to start pointing the finger at Gail Benson. And I don't want to do that because I think she's a very good owner. Because when I look at ownership, there's 2 things that I think an owner should do. Hire people and get out of the way.
And fire people when necessary, which she did with Dennis Allen. And by all accord, that was 100% her call.
That means...
Or she was driving the call.
Put people in position and you let them go do their jobs. You don't meddle, and you give them the resources they need to succeed. And by and large, Gail Benson has done that. She is willing to spend money, and she does not meddle.
Yeah, I'll give Gail Benson this, and I'll give you a personal anecdote as well. But she is the perfect owner to where she's not hyper involved like David Tepper or Jerry Jones, but she's involved enough that if she sees something wrong, she will step in like Dennis Allen. If she feels the fan base or she feels the standard is dropped, she will step in. And she could easily not watch at all. She could easily just not watch. Who cares? Doesn't matter. I don't care if it's for 1 win, 2 win, 3 win. Doesn't matter to me. She does spend money. Like, she does spend money and willing to spend money on the team and all of that. And she's a huge part of the community. Like, after the New Year's Eve tragedy, big donation from her. And I had a conversation with a group out in Las Vegas, and this is a big-time group. And this is like a group that works with every team in every league. And these are big dogs, big major players. And they told me on a side, they were like, look, by the way, we talk to every owner. We have multiple dealings with all these owners. Gail Benson is by far the best. So, and I know it's not football related, but it just shows you, like, there's a lot of layers. Like, there's a lot of layers to what's going on. And I think as far as an owner, it's hard to get a better owner than Gail.
However, at some point, when the results are this bad, you have got to intervene.
This is the part that I'm talking about with the stove. We just fired the head coach. We just traded Marshawn Lattimore. We are doing what they are saying to do. Like, we are doing the thing. You got to step in. You got to intervene. Enough is enough. You got to. Okay, we know. We threw out the stove. We threw out the fridge. All right. It's the same thing where it's like, man, the menu's getting stale. We know. That's why we're building a new menu. We agree. We are marching forward. The old refrigerator is broken. It's on the sidewalk. It is unplugged. It is out front. There is no food in it. We are right there. Okay? So, it feels like I just feel like these points get belabored when things are actually happening. When things are actually being done. It's like we can all come together and agree, like, yes, we do agree the standard is not being held. We do agree it's time for a rebuild. We do agree we need a new direction, a new coach, an outside voice. Like, all that is true. No doubt.
And allowing Mickey Loomis to continue driving this franchise into a nosedive, crashing toward the surface, is inexplicable. Like, he has got to accept culpability for what is happening, for the state this franchise is in. And the one person who can hold him accountable is Gail Benson. And the longer she allows this to go on with him. Now we start looking at her.
See, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, I think she's holding his feet to the fire with this whole Dennis Allen thing. I think that was a big, like, hey, nah, this ain't going to work. We are not doing this for the rest of the year. We are not coasting for the rest of the year and letting this happen. We are the laughingstock of the league. You messed this up. This was a mistake. Fire him. And he fired him. He fell in line. No doubt about it. So I think that was an example of her stepping in and saying enough's enough. And you do have to remember on her side, like if you're looking at Mickey, you know, this is what, his second time winning less than 7 games? You know, so I can understand where she's sitting here like, okay, you've done it before. You've navigated this before. You haven't had to in a long time. Because even when things were bad last year, they were a 9-win team. Right? Even after Breeze and in that time period, like it's still around 500. So even then, it's like, all right, you know, it's getting rocky, but let's see if you can steer it. Then this year, boom, and now it's like, all right, we're here now. Now it's time for you to figure this out. Now it's on you. Now the pressure's on. Now your back's against the wall. There's no more coaches to blame. There's no more coordinators to blame. Get it right.
But as far as him, I'm done with him. Forever.
Wow.
Pah!
Whoa.
I'm probably going to get a whole bunch of texts in the show now from people who are like divorced. Like, yeah, man, I can't stand my ex, man. Tell you what. She didn't make any noise when she slept, but that bothered me. And then you break up. It's like, we're good friends now. I feel like I could be Mickey's friend after all this.
Love is love, ladies and gentlemen. Love is love. Don't ever forget that. You know, a happy wife, happy life, as they say. But you know, I mean, I think I think sometimes people just rub you the wrong way. You know, owners, players, whatever. So I don't expect anybody to like or dislike anybody. Who cares? Like some people like Derek Carr, some people hate him, some people like Mickey, some people hate him, some people like Dennis Allen, some people hate him, some people like Mike McCarthy, some people hate him. I do think it's funny though. It would be funny if Mickey nailed the next head coaching pick. And if we were set up for another Sean Payton-esque situation. That it would be kind of interesting. Because Mickey is in a weird spot, right? Where like a lot of people are like, yeah, you did it back then, but that was luck. Yeah, you did it, man. That was Breeze. That was Payton. That draft wasn't you. It would be, I just would, for content's sake, I would love to know what the conversation would be if you pulled the rabbit out of the hat twice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.